you listen to reason? Will you open your eyes? It's a wonder what you'll find with an open mind. You may be surprised. Yeah, gotta get away from this illusion. For the sake of the world, this delusion. It's gotta go.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Atheist Experience. I'm your host, Russell Glasser, filling in today for Matt, and with me today is Tracy Harris.
Hello.
Today is Sunday, June 22nd, 2014. We're a live call-in public access television show based in Austin, Texas, dedicated to promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. We stream live at ustream.tv. The official Atheist Experience website is www.atheist-experience.com. You can also provide feedback by commenting at the official show blog. That's freethoughtblogs.com/AXP, or you can email us at tv@atheist-community.org. If you enjoy this show, you can check out our related podcast, The Nonprofits, currently airing on the first and third Wednesday of the month. Tracy, dare I ask if Godless Bitches is ever going to get the gang back together?
I am not the person to ask.
Okay.
I think that's being looked into, so.
You can find links to the nonprofits at the Atheist Experience website, and the next one will be recorded on July 2nd. As always, the cast and crew of the Atheist Experience will be going to dinner after the show. We meet at El Arroyo at 1624 West 5th Street. We'll arrive around 6 p.m. I got a few announcements to make. First one, actually, I think I have a lot of announcements to
Go
make.
through yours. Let's go through it.
First of all, I think I can say now that we've actually, people were emailing us asking if we were going to be involved with the new Roku channel that's produced by American Atheists. And at the time, we had no indication that we were, but now, yes, we are. Of course, if you're already watching this show live right now, you're not going to get anything new out of this because it just means you'll be able to watch a bunch of reruns on Roku someday.
But it's cool.
But it is really cool that there's an all-atheist channel, and we're excited about getting new audience who are not you, faithful viewers. Of course, someday you might be seeing this episode on Roku, and then this announcement will just be weird. Let's see. Okay, so there's going to be the annual Bat Cruise. There's a date set for that. It is September 27th, and this is the big annual ACA shindig where people come from all over the country and even occasionally some other countries to spend a couple of hours on a boat watching bats fly out from under the bridge. We've got the largest urban bat population in North America here in Austin, and it's going to be a great time. So you can check that out on the ACA website. Personal announcement, I am repeating that I will be appearing in Abilene, Texas, on July 26th. That's right. It's hosted by the Abilene Atheist Alliance, and it's going to be at the public library starting at 1:30. It seats 140 people, and I'm told that they expect to get a lot of Christians. So if you want to balance that audience out, then by all means, come on down. What else? Oh, yes. There's not going to be a show. There's not going to be an Atheist Experience show next week because it is the 5th Sunday of the month, and we routinely get bumped from the schedule. That's just the way the scheduling works. But there is going to be a show that is in some way related. There's going to be a one-shot show called Speak to Grapho in this same time slot. And they're prepared to take a bunch of atheist calls themselves. So by all means, just tune in at the normal time next week and call that show instead of us. I think that's all.
Yeah. I just wanted to mention like a couple more things about the Bat Cruise.
Oh yeah, please do.
Just FYI, we have confirmed our speakers, plural. This
How
year.
exciting.
Yeah. So normally we have a lecture before the cruise, and this year we have two speakers. We've got Dr. Richard Carrier, and we've also got Chris Johnson. Dr. Carrier is going to be talking about a new book that he's got coming out, and I think it actually is out. And he describes it as the first ever peer-reviewed academic book from a well-respected biblical studies press that systematically challenges the historical existence of Jesus. And then Chris Johnson has been involved in producing a project called A Better Life, or The Atheist Book, you might know it, that talks about meaning and joy in the lives of non-believers because of the often heard misconception that atheists have no joy and meaning. We love nothing and we're horrible nihilists, and it's just like, why don't we all just kill ourselves because there's no God? Anyway, those are two projects that I think are going to be important.
Right? Just to be clear.
Yeah,
on
we
that.
don't. And I mean, I'm sure that there are some atheists out there that probably do feel that way. It's just like I'm sure some believers who feel that way, even though they believe in a God. And but they're going to be talking about these projects. Chris has the next phase of his project coming up. He produced the book, which was really well done, I think, and he's also got a film version coming out that is going to be timed shortly after the Bat Cruise. So we thought that would be a good opportunity for him to be speaking about his upcoming project, and for Richard Carrier, it's good timing because he'll be speaking about his recently released project. So both of these speakers are going to have interesting things going on in different levels of the community that I think will be worth hearing. And then, of course, afterwards, there's the Bat Cruise. The 1.5 million Mexican free-tailed bats.
So much bats.
More bats than you can shake a stick at, but you're welcome to try and shake sticks at them. Don't hit them, because
Don't
bats
overload the
are
bugs with
good.
sticks.
They eat 10 to 20,000
bugs.
pounds of bugs per night. It's quite the flight from what I've seen. But anyway, that's just trying to
Great.
say what we can about it.
Actually, there's one other thing I'm doing that I forgot to mention. The week before the Abilene talk, I'm going to be in Seattle visiting my dad, and since my friends at the Ask an Atheist show happen to be there also, I'm going to be hanging out with them and being on their show. And if you're a person who likes this show in Seattle, then you can totally hang out with us after that happens. So check out their website, I guess, for details on that. All right, so you have no topic today, right? Besides what you just did?
I don't. I just would like to clarify one thing. The two quote fallacy gets misquoted a lot. I mean, it gets misused a lot, and I just want to clarify. It's really only a fallacy if you're trying to justify your position by pointing out the other person's hypocrisy. Merely pointing out that someone else is being hypocritical is not a fallacy.
Not
it's
everybody knows
simply
Latin.
a fact.
It is too quoque.
It just means you too. And so all it is, I mean, but the point is, if I'm doing something that is being criticized, and someone comes up and criticizes it, it says that there's a problem with that it's causing issues, whatever, and then I turn and say, well, you're doing it too, the fallacy would only happen if I then said, so that makes it okay for me to do it. So it's fine to point out, like, well, you're a heck of a hypocrite coming up and criticizing people for something that you're doing as well. That's not a fallacy. That's just a fact, right?
Senator, don't you also have sexual relations with badgers?
You're hardly the one to be criticizing, but the criticism may still be valid, and that's the point. If you try to use the fallacy in order to say that the criticism is invalid, then you've got a problem. That's fallacious. The criticism is still valid, it's just that you're both doing it. But I've heard it used in situations like recently I heard it used in the Cy and Matt debate where it was misused. And basically Cy's position was that his worldview is superior because it accounts for things that he believes other worldviews do not. And so he called out Matt on a particular point that he said, your worldview does not address this. And Matt said, well, neither does yours. And he said, well, that's too quoque. And it's like, no, it's not. You're the one making the claim that your worldview is superior because his doesn't account for this. It's perfectly reasonable to point out, but yours doesn't account for this. So how does yours become superior based on this?
Right, because Sai's whole argument is based on, like, you should pick my belief by default because his doesn't explain stuff.
Right, and so if somebody's telling you that what they've got is better because yours does not do X, Y, Z, and theirs does not do X, Y, Z, then it's fair to ask them, how is yours better if the reason you're thinking it's better is that it's lacking X, Y, Z. Yours also lacks X, Y, Z. And just to be clear, I didn't think that it was actually something that needed to be accounted for in a worldview. I think that it might have been a bit of a, almost like one of those questions where they say, well, who created it if it's a creation? It's like, well, you're making some assumptions there, and I don't think that the question itself is even demonstrated to be a valid question at that point. And so, that was just one example. But, when you start throwing it down just because someone points out hypocrisy, anyone can point out hypocrisy. That's just simply factual if it's actually happening. And it reminds me a little bit of when people use ad hominem, and they'll throw that down whenever there's anything that's negative or insulting, right? An ad hominem could actually be a factual statement. It doesn't even have to be an insult. It could be, for example, if you had done something that was really bad or illegal, and I said, oh, we don't have to listen to what Russell's saying about this topic over here because, well, he broke the law and he's like not even an honest person because of that. Well, it might even be true that he did that. Maybe he got arrested and put away, and so we all know that it was a fact that it happened. But it's still only an ad hominem if I try to invalidate what he's actually arguing as a result of that piece of information that I'm trying to use as negative.
Saying your argument is invalid and you're a butthead is
not
an ad hominem.
Yeah, and telling somebody that they're a hypocrite is not tu quoque. And it's only when you're trying to say that my position is not invalidated by that. But if you give your argument and say, I believe my position is valid on this, and you're being a hypocrite, I think that's totally fair. I don't think that there's anything fallacious about that. So just to kind of clarify it, please don't toss out fallacy labels if you're not sure what they mean. And if somebody calls you out and says that's not what it means, please do go and look it up because you could be wrong.
Right. Okay, we're starting with Bradley in Ohio. Bradley, are you there? Hello?
Oh, is this me?
That's you.
Are you Bradley?
If you're
Yeah,
Bradley.
from Idaho.
Oh, okay, they have you in
Well, they
Ohio.
put you on there wrong.
Bradley from
in
Idaho.
How you doing?
Good.
What's on your mind today?
Yeah, you're on the air.
Yeah, with the 4th of July coming up, and I'm LDS, and the separation of state and religion, I think it was great. Otherwise, the LDS Church would have not have existed. My question is,
Okay.
how far does that go? Like, I watched one of your shows one time, and you were talking about how some religion, if somebody has a dying relative, and they won't use hospitals or doctors to heal them, and the government won't step in and say, no, we need to save this guy's life. I don't know.
Well, wait a
Does
minute.
that make sense?
Okay, well, here's a question. The person that is refusing medical treatment, are they an adult?
Oh, no, I saw this in one of your programs.
Right, but what I'm saying is in the example of the person refusing the medical treatment, was the person refusing treatment an adult?
Yes.
Okay, well, then they can do that. The state has no compunction to go in there and force them to
Yeah, I think
have
that's
medical
right.
treatment.
And bear in mind, we don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of our own shows. We don't
Yeah.
remember every single
But I mean, you
episode
can
we've done.
opt
That makes
to basically make bad decisions about your medical welfare and end up killing yourself, basically.
Yeah, but if it comes to the point where a parent is making decisions on behalf of a minor and it's decisions that could be seriously harmful to their health, the state absolutely does have an interest
Right.
in coming in to protect somebody who doesn't have a say over their own
Correct.
over their own well-being.
I see.
But I mean, so
Are you-
going back a minute, you said you were a Mormon,
Yeah.
and you think that it's cool to violate separation
No.
of church.
You were saying you support separation, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, because he said his church wouldn't be even in existence if it weren't for separation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Good. So we're atheists. We wouldn't be especially broken up if the Mormon Church hadn't existed, but
We still support.
it's fine for me if the separation of church and state also leads to competition among religions.
Well, but also, I mean, I think you raise a great point,
diversity.
caller, in that separation of church and state is there to protect religious freedom. I mean, you're a fantastic example of this.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people think that when someone promotes separation of church and state, it's because they hate religion, they want to kill religion, they just don't want any. And it's like, no, it protects people because it allows them to then go and worship based on their conscience and not via some kind of a state mandate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It protects a minority religion like yours against the tyranny of the majority.
Yeah.
So we're in agreement, right?
Pretty much. I think he was just asking about like certain cases and how we would handle that, you know. I mean, there's never going to be like a full separation of church and state as far as like the idea. I mean, it's mostly about endorsement, right? Because, for example, churches, if a church is burning down next to your house, you want the fire department to come out there and put that flame out, right? You don't want a structure burning down next to your home. So we would want the state to come out and help them and put out that fire, even though that's a state agency. They would integrate at that point and go and put out a fire at a church structure, and I think that's fair. And then there's the question of taxation. You know, if the church is going to use these services, should they help to pay for them? I think it's fair that they do. But at the same time, whether they do or not, I don't want the structure burning down when it's next to my house. So I support, not letting structures just burn down in flames. And I would support sending an ambulance out if somebody in the church, collapsed with some sort of medical need. I certainly wouldn't restrict. I wouldn't say no. Sorry, we can't send an ambulance. It's a church.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, and then
What?
also I was in the Army, and I met my first atheist up there, and he was actually pretty cool to talk to, and crazy of what I've heard in the past.
That's
and
good.
when 9/11 hit, the next day, my sergeant, he wanted to do a prayer, and I told him that my buddy was atheist, and he probably didn't feel comfortable with the prayer. And so the sergeant says, okay, we'll go somewhere else and pray, and if you don't want to come with us, that's fine. And so I want to bring this experience because I don't think all Christians are bad in pushing their way for other people.
Yeah, well, thank you for sticking up for your friend like that.
Yeah, and also I agree. I mean, definitely different people deal with their beliefs in different ways, and some people are far more pushy than other people. You're absolutely right.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm still not sure I'm completely comfortable with the sergeant leading the prayer, even if he separated
Yeah,
it
maybe
out.
we could have asked more
But-
questions.
Yeah, whatever.
But at least he's made more of an effort, I suppose, to not, inflict it on people than a lot of other stories we've heard.
Right. So we've got Adnan in Chicago.
Yeah, hey guys, how are you guys doing?
Good.
good.
How are you?
Hey, before we begin, I'm an ex-Muslim, and Tracy, I have to say, will you marry me?
I'm already
already-
married.
Oh, are you? Okay, oh, never mind. I don't watch the show, sorry.
But I guess
Here
if
we
you're
are.
ex-Muslim, maybe that's not a problem. I don't know.
Oh.
No, wait, so Muslim is not a problem. Muslims are supposed to have up to 4 wives.
There you go.
So, for
Does it
Muslims,
work
it's not
the
a
other
problem.
way? I don't know.
Yeah. But anyway, as I said, I'm an ex-Muslim, and I needed some information regarding the no true Scotsman fallacy. Whenever I don't bring up religion with my family or my relatives or any other Muslim I come across, but they try to bring me back into the fold, and I point out hypocrisy and double standards, and they always say, well, they're not true Muslims, or they're not following the Quran properly.
Right.
So what is the best counter-argument against no true Scotsman?
Okay, well, to start with, you can't really necessarily rely on using your ex-Muslim status as any kind of authority with these people anyway. I'd just like to point out that as an atheist, my point of view on who's a true Muslim or who's a true Christian or whatever is nobody. Because it doesn't matter what's a true Christian or not. It's largely a self-applied label, and all the people who use it at the time have their own conceptions about what a true Muslim or a true Christian or whatever should be. And it's usually whoever agrees with my particular set of doctrines. So, I think that maybe discussing whether you're a real ex-Muslim or not might just be a red herring and take you down a path that you don't really want to go down. You might kind of challenge them and say, well, I thought I was a pretty sincere Muslim, and it turns out you say I never was. How do you know you're a true Muslim? Turns out you could be wrong. But that isn't likely to really sway any particular person's opinion because, of course, they know in their head that they're the true version and you're not.
I have kind of an unrelated question for you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
If they believe you were never a true Muslim, do they accept that you're not an apostate?
They
good question.
accept me. I try to be very delicate because there are a lot of issues. There's a lot of... I'm the minority. I'm the only one in my family, and I'm the youngest one, so I have to be very delicate in choosing battles. I'm a very firm advocate of picking your battles.
Sure.
So I try to be very delicate. For the most part, they have accepted it, and I don't push it. Once I become more independent, I will be more vocal. So does that answer your question?
Well, no, what I'm trying to get at is most people would say that you're in a state of apostasy, but if they're claiming you were never Muslim, then you're not an apostate. Do you know what their position is on that?
I have known Muslims who are very adamant and say, no, I should either be forced to convert or I should be disowned. But my family is more laid back because, again, Indians tend to have very large and integrated families. So I don't know how to answer your question. Basically, the question
Do they
is
consider you apostate or not? Because if you were never Muslim, then you can't possibly be apostate. So
they consider me to be an apostate.
They do consider you apostate.
So they think you're an apostate, but at the
But
same
you were never
time, they don't
Muslim.
think you were ever a Muslim.
No, I was a Muslim when I was younger. I was a Muslim, I believe.
Oh,
But they're saying you were never a real Muslim.
a true Muslim.
No. They say that, like when I bring out examples of like issues that go on in Saudi, issues that go on in India, issues that go out in Indonesia, when I point that out, they say, well, those people aren't following the Quran. They're not being proper Muslims.
Got it.
Oh,
got
okay.
it.
So
Thank
they
you
use
for
that as an
clarifying.
excuse for the fact that terrible things befall people in those
Yeah.
other countries when
Because they're
Allah
not
should
true
be protecting them.
Muslims. Right.
Correct. I have a big issue with double standards and hypocrisy and injustice. So I point out, well, how can you say the Quran says this and Saudi is the most Muslim country? How come they're following the Quran? They chop off hands of people who steal.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I don't know when I encounter, like, I get into a lot more conversations about this with Christians than not, but Christians are always accusing each other of not being real Christians, and when it comes down to that, I as an atheist say I don't want to take sides in this because I know those hand-chopping Muslims over there would say that you're not a real Muslim. So, just coming from the outside, how do I, the atheist, know which one of you is right? Like I know you're totally convinced that those Muslims are not real, and they're totally convinced that you're not real. On what basis do I make a decision? And what's useful about that line of questioning is that it brings in the idea of not believing stuff without good evidence.
Okay. I see what you mean. What ends up happening is I get very frustrated. And I say I don't know what the hell to do. Like who's a true Muslim? Who am I supposed to believe? I can't argue with you when you won't give me a definition, and I just shut down the argument, or I just shut down the sense like, okay, I'll read the Quran. I'll try to whatever, and just because it doesn't go anywhere.
Well, remember also, it's good to bear in mind that if you're dealing with completely unreasonable people, you don't have to keep talking to them. It's not benefiting you and it's not benefiting them, and so there's no shame in just walking away from an argument and saying, look, I can't talk to you anymore.
I hear you, but as I said, I have relatives from India this week or for the past couple of weeks, and again, I avoid them till the end of the day. I really do avoid them, but
Yeah.
it's a family thing. I have to see them because obviously they're my relatives. So yeah, it kind of runs into that. So I wasn't sure if there was any
Well,
logical way to
If
argue
you've got a
against
large
most of
family gathering, then maybe your goal should be to make sure that people who are maybe sort of in the middle on the fence can see you arguing with these people and they're sounding unreasonable. Then there's a point to talking to them.
But I hear you. My best solution is I'm by myself. My family's all, well, actually coincidentally, they've gone to a wedding. I decided not to go just
Right.
because it's much more convenient and a lot easier to just avoid this than to get into those debates. So
Sometimes
it
it
saves me a
is.
headache.
Yeah. There's good food at weddings, though.
That's true.
True enough.
cake and
One other question I have for you guys. Do a lot of Muslims come in and call? I mean, I don't have the time to sit and watch the whole hour-long show. I just
Hardly
catch clips on
ever.
YouTube. Hardly ever?
Honestly.
Yeah, and we appreciate the calls, honestly.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm a very big avid fan of you guys. I try to watch as much as I can, but as again, I don't have the time to go through.
I remember on the nonprofits this week, I just read a story in the New York Times which mentioned that there are several ex-Muslim groups in America. You might want to look those up.
Yeah, I'm part of it. There's a thing called
Oh.
Muslims of North America. I'm part of that,
Okay.
and they're growing in other cities, which is awesome. I really appreciate the fact that they're growing, but some of the issues are that threats are real. They are a genuine threat. So we try to keep a very low profile just because safety is a major concern.
Well,
So,
we
yeah, thank you. I mean, it's hopefully there are the Muslims listening, but there's a thing called Ex-Muslims of North America, and it's a support group basically. So, and it's growing in Dallas, Austin, Chicago, New York, Toronto.
That's great.
California.
that is great.
So, cool.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you so much,
please,
guys.
please,
Appreciate it.
we welcome calls from your Muslim family.
Oh yeah, encourage them. Totally.
They
Yeah.
will have my head if they saw, like, if they found out I called you guys.
Send them the clip. Say, hey, I was on TV.
I will post this on the Ex-Muslims webpage, or I'll try to have somebody do that, so hopefully it can get around a little bit.
Cool.
Thank you guys. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Bye. Tony in Australia.
Hey, g'day guys. How you going?
Hello. Hello.
Hey, do it. Like, I guess two questions and I guess a comment. Mainly my point for calling was I was watching an episode on Jesus Loves a Captive Audience or something like that.
Sounds like
And
a
it was,
Don topic.
Yeah, and I just wanted to sort of, I guess, share a personal experience and sort of how I became a Christian, and that's why I'm not a Christian anymore, I'm an atheist. But I went to jail a few years ago now, for 2 years. It's a long story, but essentially I tried to rob an armored car, which was a really dumb thing to do.
Yeah, don't do that.
No. Really messes with your life. Anyway, through my experience in jail, I wasn't really, I was raised Catholic, but I wasn't practicing. Didn't really factor into my life decisions or whatever I thought or did. But when I was in jail, it became very big because it was just, if anything, nice to sort of get away from general population to sort of converse and talk with sort of, I guess, normal people that come in from the outside
Sure.
to visit prisoners and whatnot. And yeah, it was. I became, I guess, not a what would you call them? I just became sort of Christian without any labels, Christian. And then when I left jail, I kept on going to what's the word? Pentecostally sort of type sort of churches, and not really knowing, I guess, why I believed what I believed, and just sort of hoping that the Holy Spirit would come into me and all that sort of stuff.
Would you
but never
say,
really felt-
I mean, a lot of people claim that converting to Christianity makes you less likely to commit those crimes. Would you say that that happened in your case or not?
No, I don't think so. I feel like
I guess you'd say maybe you just did some growing up anyway, or something like that.
Definitely. You have times to reflect. I honestly just felt shitty about what I did. You know, like I just felt guilty about what I put my family through and friends through, and what I, did to myself, and my future careers, and time wasted, and but I was just curious if there's what your opinion on that is, and if the Christianity is very prevalent in jails in America and or prison correctional systems. And
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's very prevalent, and there are cases that pop up every now and then with regard to sentencing, for example, where somebody might get sentenced to a program, and it's like some kind of inherently religious program for either addiction or rehabilitation of some sort. And they can often successfully sue and say, hey, I want to go through a secular program. I don't want to go through this religious program. There have also been lawsuits where...
Or like AA.
Yeah, and there. Well, I don't know that AA is like strictly Christian. It's got the higher power angle. So I don't know really how AA is interpreted, but there are certainly treatment programs and also sort of I guess like charitable programs a person can be told that they have to work with or go through in order to pay back to society. And when this is religious, they can sometimes appeal to get something that's not religious. And also, there were some cases within prisons where people were only allowed to do the kind of socializing you described with religious visits and groups. And so there have been suits where people went forward and said that they would like to have a secular option, and sometimes those have been successful, where atheism has been protected. I think the phrasing is something like protected as a religion. So it's not that atheism is a religion, but it is that it deserves all of the same protections that go under the First Amendment religious protections.
Okay.
Anyway,
anyway.
There were also, there was Chuck Colson's prison ministry, which I believe is still going on today, which would claim that, you minister to people in prison and then you get them to stick to the program after they leave, and it reduces their rate of recommitting crimes that would get them put back in jail. There were huge problems with that, with those claims, which I don't think I'll go into right now, but...
There's also the issue of people, I've also heard concerns about people maybe going into these programs in order to look good for an appeals board or to look good for a probationary board. It just sort of looks good because religion gets that sort of automatic respect, whether it's really useful or not.
Yeah, I don't know. When it came down to sentencing, all that stuff was brought up to me. I don't think it made a damn difference at all.
Maybe not.
Okay. But people think that it will, and that's sometimes enough.
Yeah. Anyway, through going to jail, I became, I guess, a stronger Christian, and I essentially I just feel lied to, and like my time was wasted even more. I could have been reading better books, I guess, in there. Anyway, off that topic, just quickly, I've got a sort of argument issue with a co-worker, and she's a Pentecostal Christian, goes to one of those rock band churches, and really nice girl, and in fact she's amazing, but she really does believe everything literal in the Bible.
Okay.
And she talks about the New Covenant, as I brought up some Old Testament stuff, and I've even brought up some of the immorality of the Beatitudes, stuff that Matt goes on about, and she says, but that doesn't matter because it's the New Covenant. I'm
going to give you a link that you can look up, and this will probably tell you what you need to know. At ironchariots.org, which is a wiki that Matt and I set up to kind of be a repository for counter-arguments. Search for, I think it's, but that's the Old Testament. And there's an article on that which will include a number of responses that you can make to that line of reasoning. Like one of them
Okay.
is, well, the Ten Commandments is also the Old Testament, so is that no longer valid? But anyway, check that out, ironchariots.org, but that's the Old Testament.
Yeah, let me just pull out too.
No.
There's a whole lot of confusion regarding the law and what aspects of the law carried forward, didn't carry forward, what's still in, you can get bogged down in that in a big way. In general, that old law applied to the Hebrews only. Whether or not it was still applicable to the Hebrew Christians, they can argue about that. I think that there are verses that make it clear that it was still applicable to them. I think Acts 15 and Acts 22 make it pretty clear that Paul endorsed keeping the old laws in Jewish Christian homes. And I think that he endorsed keeping the old law in regards to raising their children under the law. He also appealed to have the non-Jews who were becoming Christians adhere to laws on diet and laws on sexual morality. So he included old law restrictions even on the non-Jews who were joining the church. Now, there's other verses that seem to negate that. Big surprise, right? The Bible's got verses that conflict.
Yeah, who would've thought?
So if you go down that path, you're going to get counter verses, and you're going to get into this rabbit hole of apologetics where people are trying to make these things that conflict make sense and work together, and so it's going to get really hairy really fast. The best thing I can recommend is that you simply point out that, okay, God gave this law to the Jews, correct? I mean, at least you know she believes that. Whether it's in
Yeah.
effect today or not, he gave this law to the Jews. God thought this law was a good idea. And Jesus says that the law was a good idea, even if she thinks that Jesus ultimately, made it obsolete. He still praised it. So Jesus praised that law. God gave a group of people that law. And so it's fair to say, do you think God was right in giving that law to people? Is that the kind of law you would give to somebody, to stone people to death and kill witches and, kill
Unruly children.
kill people for sex, and really this is a law that you support as like a good and decent thing to do to other human beings. It's like Sharia law. It's like basically saying God gave Sharia law to this group of people, and I'm okay with that. It's like, really, you're okay with that? Because that's brutal.
Yeah, she has argued that, but it's not about the law anymore. It's about the personal relationship sort of things with Jesus.
It doesn't matter. The thing is, even if she believes that, the point is, do you believe that this law was given to people by God? And if so, how do you defend that your God was decent in doing that?
Yeah, hold the point. Yeah. No worries. All right. Well, thank you for your time, guys. I really appreciate it. Big fan. And
Sure.
Also, just quickly, when are you or one of your delegates going to come to Australia, or have you already been and gone and I missed you?
I don't know if we're
What?
even allowed to talk about this.
Well, I mean, I'm a registered member of the Secular Student Alliance speakers and also with Samara Lectures. So if you've got a local student group or atheist group or anything, you can feel free to float my name to them.
Yeah. You never know who might show up in Australia.
Well, if you ever go on holidays, guys, definitely check out Brisbane, because Sydney and Melbourne are popular. Brisbane's a cool city. Anyway.
Okay,
No worries, guys. No, thank you for your time.
thanks for
thank
calling.
you.
Right. No, it's bye.
Okay, Anne in Virginia. Anne?
Hey guys, how are y'all?
Fine, how are you?
I'm good. I'm working on an argument, and I wanted to float it past you. I think that if you are an atheist and you consider yourself moral, then you have to be a socialist, or you have to believe in the socialist economic system.
I
And-
already don't agree with you, but
I know,
you haven't
I know,
given
but
me your
please
argument
don't yell at
yet.
me. Please don't yell at me. I will change my opinion based on evidence.
Okay.
So, but the idea is, capitalism basically is a competition. Who can make the most money and do better than their fellow humans, and who can, climb to the top of that pile. Whereas socialism considers all humans have innate value, and they should all be taken care of to a certain extent.
Well,
and should
I mean,
control.
first of all, not getting into the parts where I agree with you about your values, maybe to some extent, I do want to say that there's nothing about being an atheist that makes you necessarily value humans. I mean,
Well, I
you
think
know,
she's talking
atheism-
about atheists that claim they're innately moral. If you're going to say I don't
okay.
value human beings, I think you're pretty much outside
Well,
that group
I think
automatically.
maybe you could make an argument that humanists should believe should be socialists. Although I'm not sure I'm willing to follow you there either. But I would probably
okay.
start there instead.
The thing I'm thinking about is that, for an atheist, we are the true believers in YOLO. You only live once.
Okay.
No?
Sorry, I have an allergic reaction to the phrase YOLO. I like who said it was carpe diem for stupid people.
Okay, I apologize.
But
I should have.
yeah,
used
I know
that
what you're
anyway.
saying. Sorry.
But and so if we turn away from our fellow humans that we believe are only here one time around, then that makes us immoral. And that's the direction capitalism goes. You have to compete. You have to try to sell people things they don't need. You have to climb up this ladder, which is basically, I mean, in one sense, it has to do with evolution. I mean, evolution is competition among animal species, and we are animals. But
I can't believe I'm going to say this, but have you hashed this out with any objectivists? Because they would say, and I don't agree with them, but they would say that the only way to be truly moral is to be as capitalist as possible. And I think, just like I was saying to the guy earlier about who's a true Muslim and who's not, it's most interesting to put the two of you in a room and hash out with each other what is the absolute correct path. Whereas I don't think, I do think that there's a way to discuss morals without getting into the kind of absolutes that you and they would be talking about. But I don't know where I'm going with this. Bail me out, Tracy.
I can't bail you out because I appreciate socialism.
Okay.
And I'm
not saying I don't.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it.
and I mean, I think the issue here is the question of whether or not you can be moral and not socialist, which I think is where you're taking it to a point where you might be walking into deep water. I understand what you're saying about it. Well, first of all, there's the question of what is morality. I have a very boundary-tied idea of what I accept as moral and what I do not accept as moral. And so, to me, obligation to other people, to what degree? There is an obligation to other people. I accept that, and I accept that as a moral imperative. But there is a point that the obligation begins to falter, right? So, for example, everybody would probably say that if you saw someone dying in the street and you didn't even bother to speed dial 911 as you were driving past in your car, most people would say, wow, that's pretty immoral that you didn't even, you don't even do the slightest thing to inconvenience yourself in a way that's not even an inconvenience, and you're letting a person bleed to death on the side of the road just from sheer, complete lack of all of the moral metrics, lack of compassion, lack of empathy, lack of, a sense of fairness, equity. I mean, it's, in my opinion, void of any metric that we would, usefully apply to the term moral. But at the same time, you have situations where there's a building burning down. Let's say an orphanage is burning down, and I'm watching it burn to the ground, and there's all these poor children stuck in there, but I feel like if I run in there, I could die. I think most people would be sympathetic if I said I felt horrible. I felt like I was so helpless and I wanted to go and help, but there was nothing I could do. Most people wouldn't say, you're an immoral, horrible person. You just have to run in there, and if you die, you die. I mean, we tend to draw a line when it comes to the cost of our lives or the lives of others that are going to have to be traded or potentially put at risk for helping other people. That's when we say that obligation is too much and you have to consent to that. That's not something we can just as a society compel. Now, where is the line between dialing 911 as I drive past or putting my life at risk for other people? I think most people would say putting your life at risk is kind of beyond normal, or beyond moral. That's why we tend to call such people heroes. We'll say like, oh, it was a heroic act, right? It was beyond the normal human obligation. So where that line is of where you have not met an obligation that makes you now having crossed the line of morality, where that line comes where it's like, this is too much to ask of you, I don't know.
Yeah, I look at morality as a set of competing principles that are always kind of in conflict with each other. I don't want to hurt people, but I want to have as much freedom as possible. And when those different principles come into conflict, it can be subjective in a sense about which ones you give more weight to. I mean, I am more liberal than a lot of people that I know, so I'm very much in favor of social safety nets and programs that don't let the poor starve in the streets. But at the same time, I do have some amount of individualism where I don't think that I necessarily have to, like Tracy was saying, sacrifice myself in all situations, even if it's for the greater good. I think those things need to be balanced out, and I think that morality is never as straightforward as saying, we've discovered the exact formula for how you should act in all cases.
Sure, absolutely. I would return and argue that the driving past the injured person on the road is what happens in capitalism, only slower. And it's, the further you get past the person, the easier it is to forget they were there. And that's why I lean toward a socialist economic system that tries not to forget.
Yeah, that may
But it
be,
seems
but
to me that-
you're going to drive me to defend kind of right-wing economics, and I hate that I'm heading in this direction.
No, Russell,
but-
no. Come back. Come back to the light.
Just because I have to be contrarian here, but I mean...
Oh, sure. Well, that's the whole point of me starting the conversation.
I mean, gosh, unintended consequences. I mean, basically, individuals need to have motivations and incentives to act a particular way. And if you go too far in the direction of removing personal payoff demanding that they go all the way over on the side of sacrifice, you're going to wind up with a very apathetic population.
Sure.
Yeah. At least
But it isn't
that,
really that extreme.
and of course, I would think that an objectivist would go way, way farther with that principle in the other direction than I just did. But I do think that there's a little bit of merit to that point.
I just think innovators will innovate, whether they're rewarded, concretely or not.
Sure, I like
some of our.
I'm a software engineer. I like programming for fun, but I also really like to get paid. And
Sure.
some of the stuff that I do.
Socialists will pay you.
Yeah,
But
but still, I don't know if I can keep going with this though.
that's okay. Can you tell me what I should name your building? I'm designing a secular college, and I've come up with a name for everybody except you.
Me?
And all I can come up with is the anesthesiology lab, which will be the Glasser gas passer.
Whoa.
Your name
Okay.
I've got the Tracy Harris Terrace, the Dillahunty dwelling.
Mine's a lot
the
nicer than
People
yours.
What is this, Dr. Seuss College?
I think yours just got named because you're arguing.
No, it is going to be a socialist
Oh, well, that'll
secular
teach me.
college if I ever win the lottery.
Right.
Wow.
Okay.
Sorry, what do you think on it?
Yeah, I'll give it some thought. All right. Thanks for
We'll give
calling.
it all the
Thank
thought
you.
it deserves.
Right. Bye. Roxy in Houston, Texas.
Hey there, guys. How are you guys doing today?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm currently driving, so if I cut off, I apologize. But I'm calling because I wanted to ask you guys a particular question. I was born and raised in New York, raised by a hardcore Catholic family, and I switched over to the dark side about a decade ago. And during that time period, I had moved down to Texas. It was a very
part of the problem with driving calls, in addition to
Yes.
safety
Safety.
situations.
Right. Pull over if you're going to do
Yeah,
that.
please,
Not
please
only
don't
will
call
it-
us while you're driving.
Not only will it keep you safer, but also
Other people safer.
you won't accidentally drive into a dead zone.
Yeah.
But the question was, how do I keep sane in the Bible Belt? It's a pretty broad question. Do you have anything to say about it?
Find a local secular group.
Yeah, I'm sure. Aren't there? Come on, Houston people. I
Yeah,
know
Houston's
there
a
are
big place.
secular groups there, but I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Texas runs some good conventions that are often available.
Yeah,
we've
I
got-
mean, Houston has NASA. Surely
Yeah.
there are a lot of.
Or you can
national
join online
scientific-minded
forums and get a
people.
lot of support at online forums from
Right,
friends
start a
online.
blog. That's what we've all done.
Yeah. Blog your frustrations as a atheist living in Houston. It would be great. Or YouTube it if you prefer video.
Yeah. Just don't read the comments. Okay. Ben in Canada, Halifax.
How are you doing this evening?
Hello, good. How
Good.
are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. So yesterday I had to have the "I'm not a Christian anymore" conversation with my parents.
Oh, fun.
Okay.
Yeah, actually it went extraordinarily well. I was just
Good.
thinking that
Congratulations.
that if everyone's conversation like that went the way mine did, that we'd have a whole lot less broken families in the world.
If only we could all live in Halifax.
Yeah, I sometimes think whatever because I live in Canada and not the Bible Belt, but. But now I've done that, and that was the major hurdle. I mean, I still have to tell my grandparents, but the parents are through, the sisters are through, so now I'm sort of at this thing. I'm just wondering, is it sort of normal that after you've lived your entire life, 2 decades plus in a religion, and then you deconvert to suddenly feel very, very excited about it, like to proverbially want to go to the rooftops and shout it?
Yeah, even though Christians say that, how do you even enjoy your life or continue living? I've found that a lot of people who shed their religion will often say that they're more excited and high on life than they've ever been. And it doesn't hurt to have, like, a supportive family, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty much how I feel, is that I want to find people to talk to about this, and I've been looking around, and I think there's a secular group here in Halifax. I was going to join it, but yeah, I'm happier than I've been in my entire life because so many things just make so much more sense now.
Very good.
Yeah, and of course there is something to being able to look at the world sort of objectively and not try to stretch your brain trying to figure out what the purpose is in every ridiculous random thing, but to just look at things for the first time with clear eyes and say, oh, that's how it works.
Yeah, it also sort of cleared up moral issues too. Like there were things that I didn't feel right about on my own. Like
Yeah.
when I was raised in a Christian school, and when I was in grade 11, we had to take a introduction to psychology, anthropology, sociology course, and the teacher, who was far right Christian, hardcore doctrine, whatever, set aside a period in time where we were going to write the Prime Minister of Canada to ask him not to redefine marriage to include gay people.
There you go.
What?
This was in class, and I didn't feel right doing it. But
Right.
I couldn't bring myself to say that because all the authority figures I ever knew said that no, this is what we need to do.
Yes.
This is what the government is doing is incorrect, and I could never reconcile that until now. And now it just I don't have any such compunctions to side with the authority figures.
Yeah, I mean, atheists still believe in right and wrong. It's just that once you get rid of some of the arbitrary rules that that God supposedly laid out in the Old Testament, you realize there's no reason to go for things like not permitting same-sex couples
Right.
to marry. I mean,
Right.
there just isn't any other reason, despite what Charlie Checkham would say.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say. Thanks for listening to me. I hope anyone else will.
I agree with you, and I agree with that dissonance too, finally going away. I remember racking my brain trying to figure out why, I remember being invited to assist when I was a teenager. I was invited to assist one of the male teachers at the high school, youth kind of class. And I was very excited about it. Of course, I was like Christian at the time, and I was just like, oh, this is great. You know, I'm going to get to assist with the class. And I was told, oh, wait, we realized one of the males in the class is baptized, which makes him a male Christian, which means that you cannot exercise authority, so you cannot be the assistant teacher. And I remember thinking to myself, but everybody here knows I'd be great. That's why I was asked. Why would God make such an arbitrary rule where a really useful tool like myself, where I could go in and do such good and I could really help teach, and everyone knows I'm qualified to do this and that I'm very good at it and I know the Bible and I would just be so good at it, why would God want me to not be able to do it? It didn't make any sense to me. It was like Russell's saying, it was so arbitrary to say that here's a person that would be so excellent in this position, but oh, she doesn't have a penis, so no. I was like, this doesn't seem like a all-knowing God rule. It seems like a really not too bright rule.
It seems like a very Bronze Age rule.
Yeah, but I mean, not a smart rule, because you're cutting off some of your best resources at the knees and saying we can't utilize you. And I'm like, that's really not best for the group, is it? That's not best for the religion. It can't be best for spreading the word of God to keep me shut down that way.
Yeah,
it didn't make sense. Even from my religious perspective, it made no sense. And yet I had to sit there and look at these verses and, you know, and say, how do I make sense of this? What am I not understanding? And I think that's the main thing too. That's the most painful part of it from a Christian perspective, is that when you're confronted with this, you don't trust yourself. You think, what am I not understanding?
Yeah, I can agree with that. That's I like to say I lived with cognitive dissonance for 2.5 decades. So
yeah. It must be right, and I just don't get it. It's, you know, it's beyond my ken. So I just have to accept it.
All right, thanks for taking my call. I hope you have a good week.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling.
Bye now.
I probably should not even do this because we've got a minute left. But Roxy is back, and I hope Roxy is pulled over now.
Hey there, guys. I apologize if I lost you guys.
Okay. Are you still driving?
I have you guys on my Bluetooth now.
What do you think?
On a what?
A Bluetooth.
Yeah, I'm going to let this be your call. You're the host.
All right, go ahead.
You know we're going to get complaints.
I'd much rather you pull over while you're talking.
We will get complaints about accepting a call while driving.
Come again, I'm sorry?
We will get complaints about accepting callers while driving. People will write to us and say that we're being irresponsible.
Oh, even though I have you on my Bluetooth?
I don't know. I mean, I just know they tend to think of us as distractions. So,
yeah. Except, shoot, we got like 20 seconds. Yeah, because we spent so much time talking about being on the phone. Hang on, we'll take you in the after show. I'll get right back to you. Anyway, that's our show. Thank you, Tracy.
Sure, it was great.
Thanks everyone for tuning in again. And did I start too soon?
I don't know.
I'm gonna say that we're ending the show anyway.
We can have Muhammad dance.
Yeah, Muhammad dance.
We can entertain. Hello,
hey,
my honey.
Hey, that's
hello,
pretty good.
Baby. Hello,
good job, Muhammad.
Michigan J Frog. It's the best I can do.
Oh yeah, don't forget that we're going to dinner at El Arroyo afterwards.
September 27th, Bat Cruise.
Bat Cruise. No. Okay. And now the awkward silence. Timing is hard.
Deep breath. Okay. Thank you.
All right, Roxy.
Hey there.
Hey.
What's happening?
Not much. I just had a question for you guys. I was born and raised in New York, and a few years back I moved to Texas, currently living in Houston. And about a decade ago, I pretty much decided that I was an atheist. I no longer believe. But living in the Bible Belt, it's very difficult not to be an angry atheist. And I hate the stereotype, I hate the label, but it's very difficult because when you have such a large population that believes and refuse to look at the facts and it's very hard to say, okay, well, I know it's your belief and that's what makes you happy in life. And as an atheist, it's very difficult because it's almost as if you're allowing them to accept their own delusion. So it's hard for me because I feel like an angry atheist, and I also feel alienated as well because I just don't share their opinions and obviously their beliefs. So my question is, how do you guys prevent, or how do you stay so positive and not an angry atheist?
We do get angry, first of all, but secondly, we have
Righteous
each other.
anger. Yes.
So yeah, I mean, look for is there no secular group in your area?
In my area, not that I know of. I recently, well, not recently, about 2 years ago, I lost my job because they found out that I was an atheist.
Oh, I'd be angry.
Yeah, that would be
Actually, there is a Houston group. It's at HoustonAtheists.com, and it says they meet socially throughout the month for many events at
Good.
convenient locations throughout the cities and
Right.
suburbs. City and
Oh,
suburbs.
great.
And I would also, if I were you, Google a few other things. Like I would Google Houston humanists and just see if you get a hit on that, because that might be more your speed. Some people
Also Unitarians even. I
Yeah,
mean, you know, they are nominally religious, but they tend to be
Yeah.
really good atheist allies.
Whenever somebody contacts me and says they don't know what's in their area, I will Google like their town plus atheists, their town plus humanists, their town plus free thinkers or free
Okay.
thought. And usually I will get something at that point.
Yeah. And I guess the biggest difficulty that I'm having in particular is just I don't want to call them ignorant, but the ignorance behind it, the blind ignorance, and their willingness to accept something that obviously was indoctrinated since birth, and the refusal to really question their beliefs and where it came from. And
Yes, we are familiar with this.
Come again?
We are familiar with this.
And I guess it's my question is, what is your advice aside from finding other groups in the area whom I can obviously share my opinions and my thoughts with?
I think that would be a great first step, and not only that, but they would also be able to advise you on your specific area. So they would kind of be able to explain to you the situation they're in, living in the same area of town, like of Houston, and how they deal with this. And so they would be able to advise you in a real specific way as far as your location. But then also, if you just have pure frustration, sometimes people just want to get something out. Like someone frustrates you, and you just need to get those ideas out. And so sometimes we, either appropriately or inappropriately, and sometimes to our detriment, unleash those things on the person that's there, whether or not it's a good idea for us in life. And so a good way to sort of get that stuff out without really causing cracks in your relationships or other social connections would be to blog it or YouTube video it, and you can do either of those anonymously if you like. Just label yourself the Houston Atheist and get online and you just start pumping out, here's what my life is like. And in fact, you can blog your story. You can blog and say, hey, moved to Houston from New York, what a culture shock. Here's my tale of crazy. And just let it go. And people would love to hear it. I think one of the things that's lacking is atheist voices, right? So there's not enough atheist voices. So if you can lend your voice to a group that needs that kind of support, and when someone goes online and they start looking up these issues and all they find are 100,000 Christian sites, right, and no atheist hits. So the more you can say about your life as an atheist online, the more we get one more voice of a normal person saying, hey, I'm an atheist too.
Okay. No, I agree. I definitely have been trying to be far more firm with my voice. I've been doing a lot of reading lately, Dawkins, A.C. Grayling, and just a lot of works out there. And unfortunately, when you go to the bookstore, they're found in under sciences and maybe psychology or New Age, and I just don't feel like they're titled well. But nevertheless, I think I've just been trying to hone in on my voice a bit more and just be heard, because it does get very lonely in this Bible Belt, that's for sure.
Well, meeting some people will really help you out in that case. Definitely. Go to one of those meetups and just see how that group works for you. And like I said, if they don't work for you, then Google Houston Humanists or whatever else you need to do. And if you can't find people in your area that you click with, then feel free to take advantage of some of the many atheist online forums.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you guys taking my call. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, okay?
You too. Stay
All right,
safe.
thanks.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.